All right. Well, welcome to the School Turnaround Podcast. My name is Dr. Chance Lewis, and I'm so excited for everyone to join us today for today's episode. I'm excited about today's episode because we have a guest today that I know really well and have been knowing for quite a long time. We have Dr. Lisa Hubbard here with us today. So, Dr. Hubbard, thank you so much for being here today. How are you today?
I'm great, and thank you so much for having me.
Great, great, great. So, as you know, since I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today, just a little background. The whole purpose of why I started the School Turnaround Podcast is to provide a platform for many educators and other stakeholders around the country to have a central place where they can come for solutions to things that they're doing on the ground in education, particularly in school turnaround. And I thought about you and what I know about the work that you've done. I'm not going to take any of your thunder away, but what I would like for you to do for us today is let's just start off with a introduction of who is Dr. Lisa Hubbard. I know you have a great background in school counseling and all of those things, but just introduce yourself to the audience so they can know a little bit about you before we start our conversation today.
Okay, great. So, my name is Dr. Lisa Hubbard, and I am currently a retired school counselor. But my journey started, I was a kindergarten teacher, first grade teacher, second grade teacher, and I did that for 8 years. And while I was teaching, I just felt like I was spending more time counseling than I was spending teaching. And I said, well, let me do this full time. So went back to school, went to Prairie View A&M and got my master's in counseling and started counseling in 1998. And so I was a school counselor for 20 years. And then somewhere around that point, I had this amazing opportunity from Dr. Lewis offering scholarships, even though I wasn't interested in getting a PhD, but I couldn't pass up this scholarship opportunity at Texas A&M. So I went back and got, did some work with Dr. Lewis with that. And so now I have my own business and I'm doing a lot of consulting and also doing Christian counseling, still working with, the students trying to make sure that they are successful in school.
Excellent, excellent, and as I said, I'm so proud of you as well. So let's dive in because like I know, school turnaround is hard work, right? And so I want to take us
Yes.
back if we can, and let's talk a little bit about your journey from the standpoint as a professional school counseling, because a lot of times when people think about school turnaround, they may think of the principal or some administrative leader or a classroom teacher, and a lot of times the school counselor is left out of that conversation. But as the counselor, I know you see a lot of or have seen a lot of the issues that are going on with students as well. So, talk a little bit about first the role of the school counselor that you played in the school and how that shaped some experiences that you had that would successfully lead to school turnaround.
Okay. So the role of the school counselor actually, I played dual roles because I was an administrator, but my job, my main job really was to help students when they were in crisis, responsive services and things like that, connecting them with community resources, if the family needed things. But I feel like one of the most important things that I was responsible for was also connecting the teachers, connecting teachers with students, because a lot of the issues students were having when they came to me were because of teachers not being culturally responsive and things like that. And so once I completed the PhD program, I was able to do a lot of staff development and really working with teachers and giving them some tools and things that they needed. But I was also able to help, the principal, the assistant principals understand this work and how to help our schools to, be more culturally responsive. because what I saw is working in a predominantly white school district that they were really having a hard time understanding, especially the African American males. And so that was something that,
Hmm.
I just was excited about helping them to give them some strategies and things like that to help and be successful with some of those young boys. And I feel like, I was able to do that in quite a few schools that I worked in, because most of the schools I worked in were Title One.
Right, right. And so let's dig into that a little bit, because I think that that work is very important, and oftentimes, like I said, is overlooked. So when we think about this, something I was thinking about is, when we think about school turnaround in education, right, we're thinking about a couple of key factors. One, can the students reach their full potential and perform academically? And then two, can the school and the school environment also function at its full capability? And hopefully those kind of two things kind of meet together as well. So help me understand from a school counselor standpoint the balance of walking through engaging students with their teachers, engaging with the parents, engaging with the administration, and engaging with the community as well. Because I know you had to do all of those as well. So walk us through what that looked like in a situation where the school is functioning at a optimal level, and then also in a situation where it's not functioning properly as well.
Okay. So, yes, that was one of the things that I also implemented as a school counselor. Was I implemented, parent, we did a lot of parent relationships and parent meetings and things like that to inform parents and help them learn how to advocate in the
Hmm.
schools. So that was one a critical role that I played, was doing lots of parent workshops and things like that. And then also one of the things I did is I started implementing mentoring programs within the school setting. And so that looked different. That looked different on, a lot of
Hmm.
levels. One of the schools I was able to partner with the church that was like next door to our school. And
Hmm.
so some of the church leaders and youth leaders were able to come in and mentor. And I was, a part of that, structuring that. And, that was something that worked very well. And, just I think it's important to, and then
Hmm.
we had community social workers that also were a part of our campus. And I was able to connect the social workers with parents and parents with the social workers. And so it was just important for everybody to be on one accord, especially when we had, students that were struggling and they just, weren't being successful in school. That's when you have to look in and see there's more to it than meets the eye. And so that's where bringing in parents and
Right.
bringing in mentors, and everybody's working together because it takes a village.
Experience innovation in education against the backdrop of Cancun's beauty. Join us for the International Conference of Urban Education in this vibrant coastal city. Unlock new perspectives while enjoying the breathtaking scenery. Book your spot now.
And so it was just important for everybody to be on one accord, especially when we had, students that were struggling and they just, weren't being successful in school. That's when you have to look in and see there's more to it than meets the eye. And so that's where bringing in parents and bringing in mentors, and everybody's working together because it takes a village.
Right. It does take a village as well. And so we paint the full picture for our listening audience today. When we think about how you describe the role of the school counselor, and all the things you have to do in that role, when you think about our conversation today, how the school counselor can contribute to school turnaround and bringing all these stakeholders together, let's talk a little bit about challenges you face as the school counselor, because oftentimes, I know particularly like in the high school settings, when people think of school counselor, they think of, that's the person that's the gatekeeper of scholarships, that kind of thing. But talk about some of the challenges that uh, you faced and a school counselor would face in their role as, as they facilitate school turnaround.
Okay, I think, some of the challenges that counselors face will be that they're sometimes not valued um, in the process of, running the
Right.
school and making decisions. And so I think it's important. The challenge, if you're not being valued, is that you have to speak up and you have to share your, share knowledge and share your connections that will help to be a part of the school setting. And that's the thing, is sometimes they don't like bringing in outside people, but I think it's important. One of the things I was
Right.
tried to really do was bring in like speakers and things like that that needed to come in, and other stakeholders to help with this process. But I think the most important thing too is that counselors have to, go outside and get some workshops and things that they can bring back into the school to share this information. Because a lot of times, again, we're counselors are kind of overlooked, and they become they
Right.
become the test coordinators and all those things, and so they're really not having a chance to dive in and see what's going on with kids. And so that is a big challenge, is that sometimes counselors are doing too much paperwork and things like that. So as a counselor, you just have to be intentional about building those relationships and those connections and things like that.
Yeah, and that's important. And before we, dive into solutions, because I'm a solutions-based person, I want to dig a little deeper on some more challenges that I think are out there as well. Because when we look at counselors, like you said, you came from the angle of culturally responsive, right? And we,
Yeah.
we both know that there are counselors out there that, that don't have that angle, right? And
Right.
so talk about some of the challenges when they don't adapt kind of culturally responsive approaches. How hard is it for them to connect not only inside the school but outside the school? Let's talk about the challenges of those connections as a school counselor with the wider community as well.
Okay. And that, yes, that is important because, again, like I said, working in a predominantly white school district, what I, faced was there were a lot of counselors who really did not just kind of understand the backgrounds of some of the kids they were working with. And so they really were doing them a disservice. And so one of the things that I actually did is I presented to the counselors. And so, and I'm still doing that currently, is trying to help counselors to really be, they have to be the first line of being culturally responsive, because they are the ones connecting the administrators and the teachers with parents and the community. And so I think it's important for all counselors to have just some training in culturally responsive social emotional learning and things like that, so that they can connect and make sure that they are providing the best services that they can provide for the students. Because first of all, like in your book with diverse classrooms, and white teachers, that was something that helped me to make sure that I
Right.
understood what I was dealing with. And so I think a lot of counselors they really have to have that type of training, because that's important. That's the only way you can work with all different, cultures, especially trying to, counseling is always, it's always has a negative stigma anyway. And so, you have to be able to know how to counsel with different cultures to be effective.
Right. And just for clarification for our listening audience, because I know in your working career you were in one of the more well-resourced, I'll call it that, school districts, not only in the state of Texas but also
Yes,
in the country, right? And so most people believe because a school
yes,
district is well-resourced, we don't have any issues, right? Particularly as it relates to school turnaround. So
right.
can you kind
Hmm.
of clear that up for our learning audience? Does well resource district mean that you don't have school turnaround going on?
Exactly. And the thing that I experienced, even though there were many resources, they just chose to use those resources in different places. So I think as a counselor, you have to
Right.
advocate. You have to advocate for those resources to be used, to help students that are struggling, and help the parents and the community. Sometimes those communities, are overlooked, and so that's why there the resources in those school districts, sometimes they choose, like I said, just to use those resources for things that don't really support the students, that we're trying
Right.
to help. And so I think just knowing where, parenting, mentoring, and all those things, those are things that need resources. Those don't just happen. Those just don't
Right.
happen just because. And so I think advocating for what you need and what's necessary, and the training, that's, to me, that's key, is having counselors. Counselors sometimes don't get out of the building and go to trainings. And so I think that's important.
That's right. That's right. Good, good, good. So, for the last few minutes of our podcast today, I want us to dive into solutions. So, what I'll do for our conversation, I want you to think about solutions from the school counselor perspective as it relates to school turnaround. And what I'll do, I'll focus it on, I'll call out stakeholder names, right? And with those stakeholders, I want you to tell our listening audience from a school counselor perspective how the stakeholders that I name can help facilitate the process of school turnaround to support the counselors in doing so as
Okay.
well. Okay, so let's start with solutions for principals and school leaders as they think about school turnaround. How can they better engage school counselors to fulfill their role? What do you see as solutions for that particular stakeholder as it relates to school turnaround and facilitating that school turnaround process?
So one of the things that I think is important, for principals to, to maybe consider, in helping counselors to be, more effective, is allowing counselors to be counselors. Because, like I said, my experience was, counselors spend a lot of time with paperwork, spend a lot of time doing state testing, and a lot of times doing, bilingual ESL testing and paperwork, and they're the gatekeepers of so many things that they're not able to really dive in and spend the time necessary, to getting to the root causes of some of the things students are dealing with. And so if counselors can't really connect and be there for the students, on a, just to me, a more, a level where it's a deeper level, that to me hinders the turnaround for schools. Because a lot of the students that they're having issues with, especially African American males, with all the disciplinary, in a, disproportionate disciplinary actions, that's where the counselor can be effective, and that can help turn schools around.
Excellent, excellent. So that's for the principals and school administrators. So let's talk about the next stakeholder that I have in my mind. Let's talk about teachers, right? From the standpoint of how that teacher school counselor relationship should look, right? To not only facilitate school turnaround, but to get the student at their most optimal performance level.
Okay. So I think, the teacher school counselor relationship is critical. And the counselor serves as kind of like a go between with the teacher and the administrator and the parents. And so I think being able to allow counselors also to train teachers. There's a lot of things that counselors can share with teachers to help them to be successful in their classrooms as it relates to, again, like I said, things like social emotional learning and culturally responsive strategies that they, could use to help facilitate relationships, because I believe counselors are, relationship builders, or should be. And so I think having counselors work closer with teachers, maybe teachers that are struggling to build relationships and understand student cultures, that should be the counselors, that should be one of their primary roles as well.
Great, great, great. So the next stakeholder I want to talk about is parents, and I want to preface this before you respond, right? Parents and families, because oftentimes schools say, particularly schools that are in a school turnaround kind of process. They say things like, "We want families involved, we want them engaged." You know what I mean? But what I found in my career, sometimes they don't really want that. You know what I mean? It sounds good,
No.
right? But we in education, in a school, we as educators, I'm gonna just put it like that, we have our own language that we speak, right? And we speak in all kind of abbreviations,
Yes.
and all of those types of things. And sometimes it's hard for a parent to, one, come to a school, and properly ask for what they need as well, particularly from a school counselor, right? So lay out for us
Yes.
in the situation how families should engage not only with the school but particularly the school counselor, and help any parents that may be watching understand what the school counselor does from their perspective, because administrators view counselors one way, teachers one way, but then now we're at the parent level. So kind of clarify that for us of how they can engage with the school counselor, for the greater good of the school turnaround.
Okay. And so that's one of my, I think that is just kind of that's my heart, is parents, because um doing working on my PhD, my research focused on single mothers and how they were able to raise successful sons. And so a lot of the things that, and then I've also written a book that I co-authored with you, thanks to you, that we were able to get that out there and share some techniques with,
Yeah, I was gonna have you talk about it. We're gonna talk about that too.
okay, okay. And having, I believe that the role with the counselor and parents really has to be one where it's genuine. And I believe sharing information and helping
Hmm.
parents know how to advocate, that's the thing, is a lot of parents don't want to come to the school because they had bad experiences
Hmm.
as kids. And so the counselor can go between the administrators and really just give them the information, the knowledge, the wording, help them understand what the school is saying, when they're in art meetings and things like that. Sometimes the administrators in those meetings aren't taking time to explain things to parents, and so that's where the counselor comes in. But I think that's one of the things, is I believe in sharing openly with parents and helping parents to get the community support that they need as well. Because sometimes, again, it takes a village and they have to go outside of the schools.
Right,
But
right.
I think, that's important, is connecting, the counselor being able to connect with parents to give them tools to come and advocate for their kids in the schools, and allowing situations where the parents can be present in the school. Again, having parenting workshops during the day and helping parents. I was also able to set up parents to be able to come in and volunteer and work with students. And I train those parents in how to do that. So I think that's key.
Great, great. So before we close out, I want you to speak to school counselors, right? Because I think that's important as well. Because you said one of the things you did really well was advocated for resources. So, how does a school counselor advocate for resources that could help facilitate school turnaround from their perspective?
So I think school counselors have to, first of all, again, like I said, is know themselves, know the areas that maybe they need, um, you know, professional development in to make sure that they are, just able to navigate their role to be, again, culturally responsive, because I think that's so important that counselors have to be culturally responsive to deal with parents, to deal with students, and to deal with administrators. And so I think just being able to know themselves first, and then being able to say, this is a need that we have, and share strategies and things that will work. And then that, I think, when you, as a counselor, when you're sharing why you want to, start a program, and why you want to do a mentoring program and things like that, that's how you advocate for resources to help yourself to be successful as a counselor. Because again, I say it again, it takes a village. And so as counselors, we have to pull from outside resources, and pull from social workers, and pull from the community. Getting the community involved, I think, is so important, because as a school counselor, you can't provide therapy per se for students. And so that's where you reach out to, therapists in the community that are willing to partner with you and set up those relationships with the parents as well.
Right, right, and that's excellent advice. So I have one last question for you before we go. Since this is my podcast, and we get to talk about what we want to talk about. So you and I have a book together. So why don't you tell the listening audience a little bit about that, and where they can find the book, as well as it relates to our topic today.
Okay. So our book is called Mentoring Strategies for African American Males. Single Mothers Tell Their Stories. And so that was important to me, because it also, one of the things the book helps to share is how single mothers can raise successful sons. And that, we don't, there's not a lot of research out there about African American males being successful when they have single mothers. And so we just wanted to share, a different narrative on that. And I think, the importance of that book is showing how single mothers can involve, the community, and how they can get involved with the schools and the counselors to help support them. That was the main one of the main things that was in the book too. It talked about the support systems. It talked about being resilient. And so those are things that, if we can share those things with parents, and we can share those things with the schools, I think that's important to help, especially our African American males, to be successful. Because we know that, when you look at all of the statistics, it's saying that they are, performing, they're underperforming. And so that's our job. Our job is to get in there and make sure that they have the resources that they need, and they have the people in place that can help them to be successful. And so you can find our book on Amazon, um, and you can also reach out to us on our websites. My website is brighterfuturescc.com. And so, yes, reach
Ex-
out, and I think that would be a great resource.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Dr. Hubbard, I want to thank you so much for joining us today for today's episode. I know you have a lot of insight and expertise around this topic. That's why I wanted you to come and speak to our audience around the role that you have played over your career, and how it helped in school turnaround as well. So just thank you so much for being here today. I really truly appreciate having your presence here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, you have a good one. You take care. Okay.